What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the 817 podcast, where we talk about Tarrant County and the lovely city of Fort Worth, Texas. We get into politics, business, culture, news. If it impacts you as an 817er, we discuss it. We give you one big story, 3 short stories, wins, losses, and actions. My name is EJ Carrion.
And I'm Ann Zeta.
And our producer, Wesley Kirk. Guys, that took like 8 tries, but we got there for you guys.
We're
trying to figure out the new intro now that we're expanding our horizons.
I'm impressed that you can nail that as quickly as you do after doing it the other way for as long as we've been doing it.
I know, right? But we did it. Guys, we're here. We're all wearing blue, if you can't tell, if you're not on YouTube, or we're in blue to celebrate the blue tsunami that's coming, right?
Yeah, there you go. Last night was a big night.
I just love, we were talking about like back in the day with no kings, we were talking about how Fort Worth is majority blue and people get mad at us. But some of those people are like, blue tsunami. Now, I was like, oh, we all blue now, aren't we? Mm-hmm. So, but anyways, guys, this was big. Let's get into the big story. Taylor Remet wins SD9. The first Democrat to win SD9 since 1978.
What year were you two born? I was alive in 78.
1989.
There you go.
Yeah.
Before the two of you were alive.
Mm-hmm.
But you weren't in Fort Worth.
No, I didn't move to Fort Worth until 1990.
And so, what do you guys think? We're here. It happened. I know you guys, we have to talk about this. We've had Taylor Remet on twice. Mm-hmm. Taylor Remet is a fan of the show.
Yeah,
hopefully he is still after
early
the pod.
supporters.
No, he will be. Me and Taylor are cool, but what do you got to say? Let's give some opinions.
I think it's exciting. I'm really glad for that. I think it's crazy, and there's been a lot of ability to educate people about things because this was a really unusual process with I don't remember what it's called, Wesley.
The jungle election.
The jungle election to start with, where it wasn't separate primaries, and then a runoff because nobody got 50% plus of the vote, and then, finally where we are now. But also understanding that there's going to be another chance to vote for one of these two people in November.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So still a crazy, unusual process that I think people are still struggling to understand.
Yep.
And the Republicans can't switch out to someone more sane, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing people say, and I don't quite understand beyond the fact that the typical primaries early voting starts February 17th. So I guess that because the runoff was so close to it, there's no time to switch out anyone, and this runoff essentially acts as what would have been a primary. So I guess that's why, but I kind of feel bad for Taylor that just election after election after election, like a whole year of campaigning for a seat before the legislative session even starts, where you can actually do anything.
And to see a plus 30 swing to Democrats is... And Tarrant County people?
Yeah. For anyone who's watching, I'll put it on screen, that map of showing, 2022 compared to what happened today, yesterday. And then the map I like even more is it shows the color swing. So how far it went. And that map is so freaking blue. Yeah. And I think that's what fills me with so much hope about this election is we say it all the time that Tarrant County is the largest swing county in the country. And that we're already a blue city. It's just having to counteract that Republican propaganda, trying to convince everyone that Texas is red, Tarrant County's red, and there's no hope for Democrats even bothering. And it's that's clearly not true when we see such big swings getting more and more blue every election.
Well, it's also an example of something that was gerrymandered to try to make it more Republican, and that didn't end up working out. And so I think with all of the gerrymandering that's gone on at the county level and at the state level, we've ended up with a lot of people who kind of are just, maybe we're feeling like they should just throw up their hands and not even try, but clearly that's not what we should be doing because in a place that has been gerrymandered to be more Republican, a Democrat has won.
Yeah, because we brought this up too when they did the gerrymandering, is that they were basing these off of voter turnout, and voter turnout is so low that all it takes is just a slight percentage change and more people showing up to undo all the gerrymandering that they put in place. So.
And I think a lot of the people who showed up were looking at policies and things that have been hurting their lives and hearing the things that Taylor was saying that he was there for, working class people, healthcare for people, schools was a huge issue because part of this area was covered by the area where they were talking about the split in the school district that got a lot of people very upset.
Yeah.
So I think coming forward and talking about true things that affect the daily lives of voters and residents of the county and the city is the way to go. You should be unapologetically progressive in your policies that you are planning to bring forward and establish in the job that you do at the state legislature.
I love that. And it feels like a perfect transition to a rant I know EJ has locked and loaded, ready to go.
No, I mean, I actually didn't sleep that well thinking about what the heck am I going to say on this pod, because I have so much mixed feelings about it. You know, one, like, I'm really excited for Taylor. I mean, he ran a great campaign. I mean, Jake, you know, great job leading a campaign. You know, Tarrant Young Dems, everyone who was involved. This is huge for democracy. I think what it really embodies is like January was a hellhole. And like to have us, like, I think this was everyone saying, you know, F fascism. We want democracy. And so I think at the end of the day, this election represented that big feeling, and we didn't have energy or a place to go to fill that void. And so Taylor's election, regardless of the ice storms, made it like a place for us to say, we can do something. And so like, that's like, I think the positives of Taylor. I think that the fact that Taylor and Lee has to go against each other again in November is good for Taylor, because I think Taylor spent a lot of his time today just providing normalcy and sanity, right? Because Leah Wamsgans was such an extreme candidate, and he just needed to really bowl down the middle. But like, how do we go from here? And like, I believe my fears now about all of this is this makes what we talk about harder, because this is a win for moderate politics in Tarrant County. And even though I do believe Taylor is a progressive, he participated in the game like most do in Fort Worth. And he really met in the middle. I mean, something that, you know, right? He celebrated a Glenn Whitley endorsement, which, if we're looking at someone who had some horrible immigration policies that he approved, Glenn Whitley was that person. Now, I'm not saying that is bad or good here today, but what I'm saying is that Taylor ran a very moderate race, and that is not something we need to emulate for the rest of these elections. To me, Taylor shows us how ready it's time to take the whole chips. It's time to go get everything. And it's a shame if we're here a year from now and all we have is Taylor Remet-like candidates. I think he's a perfect candidate for a plus 17. But in District 9 and District 2 City Council, and, you know, some of these House districts where you see like a Junior Nzanu going against a Chris Turner, everybody needs to believe that they can be on the chopping block. And if you believe you can be bolder, badder, bigger, you need to run for office. Because this is the time to get the whole shebang.
Yeah. And you saying plus 17, that means that district went 17 points
Donald Trump
in favor of Trump.
Yeah.
And so, so if you're trying to flip a solidly red seat, that's when it's appropriate to go a moderate approach.
Correct.
But we have so many blue districts that we need to just stop playing to the middle and just go full force towards progressive policies.
Exactly. And here's the thing, like, right, we've had Taylor on the pod twice. We were early supporters of Taylor. I remember, and I knew Taylor was running before the SD9 seat even came up.
Yeah.
Me and him were having a beer. We were talking at a Tarrant Young Dems meeting, and that's the first time we really hit it off. But he was super engaging. He was super showing his policies. We were just talking, and he's for sure a progressive. Like, he loves Bernie. He supports like AOC. Like, he's a big supporter of these things. And he even said, he's like, hey, you know, I'm gonna run for SD9. And I'm like, cool. He's like, I just feel like, he's like, no offense. He said, no offense. I don't think a black or brown person can win SD9. And I was like, no offense taken. Like, I agree. And so I also know that he knows, and he has said to us, hey, I know I may not be running the campaign how y'all would like me to see the campaign, but for what we need to do for the moment that we're in, and for people to stick to their values and what they believe they need to do, I respect. But that doesn't mean, and I think Taylor would also like say that, you know, and see that as like, where there's more opportunity to be upfront, bold, and audacious, we need to go make sure we do that rather than doing the acquiescent in the middle like he had to do to save all these kind of people who like didn't know where to go after they realized Leah Wamsgans is a crazy person and their entire party has been corrupted and they don't know where to go. And so he kind of gave you that nice guy with a French bulldog, come hang out. And so he was great and he did his thing. But that's kind of my big part about it.
Well, and I think it's important that we don't just get comfortable. And there's people who came to this and they're very excited about this and may not have been the boots on the ground people that were helping this happen, who are like, oh, wow, we did that. And I'm saying, no, we didn't all do that. There were a lot of people working super hard, and there are a lot of people who are very excited about this that maybe didn't take as active as in a role, who are going to need to step up and take a more active role in the types of fights and races that you're describing right now. And that doesn't mean people like me deciding to run again, because that is something that I've been approached with like by a lot of folks. And I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in black and brown, unapologetically progressive candidates.
Supporting Nydia Cardenas.
And supporting those people in these roles going forward.
Yeah.
To your point, we could easily fall back to the safe, comfortable, moving to the middle. And I don't think that that's what we need to be doing in this moment.
Yeah, that's why my hope is that seeing this win galvanizes the people who have written off Tarrant County or who don't feel like their vote makes a difference. And it's like, it just did. And it can again and every single time. And you need to get everyone around you to see it too. Because the more we get all those people motivated to get out and vote constantly and support candidates who have progressive policies, then that opens up the window for those candidates to be more vocal in how progressive they are.
Yeah, because I think we have to, like, the real conversation that Fort Worth and Tarrant County has to get through is our white supremacy conversation. And I think the most fearful part about the Taylor Remet thing is people are going to think the beginning of change is Taylor Remet, which is a white male, which a lot of white activism happened. I think a big shout out to Keller, big shout out to Southlake, big shout out to the indivisible groups. I mean, there's a lot of white activism that really helped made this possible. But we got to remember that really this started back when Elisa Simmons started talking about this racial gerrymander, and we all got more activated. There would be no video podcast. There would be no EJ even close to being the way he is without people like Elisa Simmons showing us what we're actually exposed to. And the history started there. And where I am, like I said this to you guys, I'm okay with saying it on the pod, is like there was a way and there was a part of me in a way that was okay if Taylor lost this round, because I think he would win in November, but it would allow us to show, like, see, like, we don't need to keep meeting in the middle. And it makes us, like, if it would give us the chance where everyone in Tarrant County would get a big blow to the chest, but then we would all commit to maybe they're actually saying something. Maybe we do got to support black and brown leaders, women. Maybe we do got to do the marginalized. Maybe we got to commit to that. And more people would have said, we don't have another choice. But with Taylor winning, it kind of keeps, it's like, it keeps people in their comfort while they still feel like they can save democracy. Like, oh, great, I could stay in my white comfort and save democracy. But ultimately, we're going to have to live and transform through that discomfort, because what we have on the docket when we look to vote is a Commissioner
The
Elisa
candidates
Simmons,
coming up. Yes, exactly.
Tiffany Burks, Nydia Cardenas, all the judges. These are black women. These are people we need to activate and make sure we show up for them. And we have to talk about it because we have a history in Fort Worth not meeting those moments when it happened in the past.
Yep. And not supporting those people. So speaking of debates and contested races, we did have the James Talarico and Jasmine Crockett debate that happened during this time that we were not meeting and having a podcast because of icy weather. And I think that both EJ and I watched that debate. We can talk a little bit about what came out of that.
The person who benefited the most from Taylor Remet is James Talarico. I mean, that's why I think we need to be talking about this. And what's great is we posted a video on the Instagram before this about, like, talking about what we just shared on the pod. And some people disagree that are, identify progressive or on the left. And I think it's because the James Talarico, Jasmine Crockett is the grand experiment of Texas.
Well, it just flares up that whole conversation of quote unquote electability
Yeah.
again, and whether we need to go with a safe person that doesn't make people uncomfortable or someone who's a little bit more challenging and is saying the tough things out loud.
Yeah. Because electability is changing, what that means to people.
And it should.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the debate. We also, had a Discord event. So I got to watch it with 817 Gather people on the Discord. So we were in Discord and we were watching it together. People were commenting, and we had a 2-hour hour of watching and an hour of post game. And so I'm interested to share some of people's ideas and thoughts. But I mean, I believe actually James Talarico won the debate. Now let's be clear. I think Jasmine Crockett is the candidate for Texas, but I think James Talarico won the debate in the lens of I think he's a strong debater. He stayed on topic. He was finishing on time. Jasmine just didn't get to her ideas enough. But I also believe I actually left the debate less interested in both of them. I was like, ooh, okay. But I think the part that was really big to me was the moment when James Talarico was asked by Dallas Morning News, you took Miriam Adelson money, the casino billionaire lady, the lady who says, Trump, let's do 3 terms, another term. And what do you have to say? And he just kind of ignored it. Yeah.
He basically said he didn't know her, which is probably very hard to believe.
Yes.
When you say he won the debate, I watched that whole thing thinking this is no platform for anybody to make a decision about who they should vote for.
Yeah, correct.
Making people answer questions in 30 seconds to a minute is ridiculous.
Correct.
And to your point, he did do the debate format more smoothly.
Yeah.
But I thought that Crockett got into the swing after the first little part and was doing better in that realm.
Yeah.
But I also don't think anybody should make decisions based on 1 minute and 30-second answers in a debate, because that's ridiculous. You can't get to the substance of the things that are important that we should be taking into consideration when making decisions about who is going to be the better candidate or the better at serving in the role.
Yeah, it's just who writes a better soundbite, not who writes a better policy.
And that's why I think James, you could tell he has the practice of being viral, making the YouTube moments.
Because it seems like most of Jasmine Crockett's viral moments are in
actual session.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that goes a long time, and it's back and forth with other people. She's a good spar, right?
Yeah.
She could spar where James is a good
sprinter.
Yeah, and so debates kind of work for him. But I mean, I walked in as a Jasmine Crockett supporter. I walked out as a Jasmine Crockett supporter. But we had some Talarico people on the Discord, and so it was good to kind of go back and forth and seeing everyone trying to be as objective as possible, even though they had bias on who they liked. But parts where I felt like Jasmine fumbled was she talked about working with Republicans at one point and kind of did the whole meet the middle thing.
That's interesting. I thought that was Talarico's whole thing.
Yeah, she kind of stepped around the AIPAC stuff. They both kind of did, by the way. But the reason why the Talarico thing is more concerning to me is you run on, I am not running, it's the top versus the bottom. And you run about not being for the billionaires. And yet you getting money from a billionaire who's not just any billionaire. It's the billionaire who's probably, you could argue over the last year, has made Texas the worst. It's worse. She bought the Mavericks. Where's Luka Doncic? She kind of has made Texas worse since she showed up.
She was putting a bunch of money into SD9 too, right? Was it in
John
Huffman
Huffman?
or was okay? Gotcha. Yeah.
It's not just that he has billionaire money. It is that it's the billionaire who's probably made the most harm in Texas over the last 12 months. And you just kind of ignored the conversation rather than acknowledge it. And that's his main shtick is we got to fight the oligarchs.
But he also came out and said that he was in favor of legalizing gambling and that's why he took the money from that PAC, which I have serious concerns about, because the concern that I had was that Talarico basically said in the debate that the reason he is fine with the money coming from the people who support gambling in Texas is because he thinks that gambling in Texas is going to bring funding for schools. And he has been very much behind schools and pro schools, and he fought the voucher stuff, and I was absolutely with him on all of that. But to think that gambling money is going to fix funding for education, I don't see that, because I lived through the experience of the lottery being brought to California with the argument being made that that money was going to be additional money for schools and education, and they just took it away in other places, and it didn't end up being an increase in funding for schools. And so I know the lottery is not the same as the gambling that we're looking at here in Texas and some other states have already gone forward with, but I think that gambling in and of itself brings more ill to a community and a state that we'll then have to deal with on the back end.
That's what I was thinking, is like, we know we're always going to rely on funding schools. It's going to have to happen. But for that to rely on the addiction of people who can't stop gambling, that seems like a horrible way to make sure that funding comes through.
And he was using the reference of New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Louisiana on how it's successful for them. But if you look at those 3 states, those are some of the poorest states in America. Like, we are the one with the economy. Like, we're the one with actual revenue. And honestly, they need to do casinos so that Texas people go and service the Oklahoma and New Mexico and Louisiana economy. Mm-hmm. And so, like, to use poor states that don't have a lot of industry and economic or even educational, charter schools have eaten up Louisiana. So it's just like, it was a poor example. And to me, I guess I don't have any ties against or for casinos. Like, I mean, to me, it's almost kind of like the cannabis conversation in the sense of like, I don't gamble, and I really don't participate either. So it's like
way less harmful though.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like, to me, I guess in a sense of like,
you don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah, I don't have a dog in the fight in the sense of like how close,
bad and sinful
how close,
and all that.
how close is, because a lot of people do the sports betting now anyways. Like, I think there's so many ways
it's all
to get
online.
Yeah. So there's so many ways to get to that problem that already exists for a lot of Texans. But yeah. So I mean, anyways, the casino thing was a part that I felt like was his big miss, and I think anyone who kind of Jasmine had this whole APAC situation, but like she had the letter that she wrote to Biden, that she was one of the signatures saying like, we need to quit doing the funding of Israel. She did a lot of things, but it's like, to me, what James Talarico did would be like if Jasmine Crockett said, I'm getting Israel out of Texas, and then has history showing that she voted for APAC. Like, he is saying, we need to fight the billionaires, but then has money from billionaires. So to me, the pain of the wrong is higher on James than whatever assessment we have on Jasmine. Because I do agree, neither of them are the ideal progressive, really fully got it yet. But obviously this work is growing. Neither did Beto when he started. So we can see where that journey goes. But we also got the tea that Howdy Politics brought out about James Talarico. Did any of you see that?
All this conversation about how there was some effort to make sure that we had really good candidates at the top of the ticket and in multiple races. And the tea that was dropped was that everybody thought Talarico was going to run for governor. And looking back, I did see that momentum.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten. But he had, with his battle for against the vouchers, he was very much setting himself up as the person who was going to go against Abbott. Mm-hmm. And apparently somebody from out of state took him off under their wing and said, hey, no, you should do this instead, which is a little disconcerting.
Yeah, and I think the Howdy Politics drama, which is Howdy Politics is a local Texas influencer who kind of reports about Texas politics. But James Talarico on a podcast said like he ran after he asked everyone and no one was running, so he felt like he could step up for it. And she's like, baloney. Everybody knows you, Beto, Joaquin got in a room together, and we could have had a slate where we would have had a strong, clear slate and
multiple wins
with multiple wins. And you chose to jump to the Senate because someone in New York who ran Andrew Cuomo's campaign convinced you to go run for Senate rather than governor. So technically what Howdy Politics is trying to say is that he selfishly as an individual took his own needs over what could have been a Texas slate where you have a Beto at Senate, a Talarico at governor, Joaquin at
Attorney General.
which you see how much he's doing for that young kid who got taken from Minnesota and is in San Antonio. Yep. I mean, what a moment it would be to have him running, in these moments. So, anywho, I mean, but you could argue what's so great, full circle is women save the day because men get in all their mess. So we have Jasmine Crockett and Gina Hinojosa. So let's roll. This actually worked out.
There you go. Now we just have to be in the fight and in the battle to get those two elected for sure.
And that's why the pressure on the Taylor Remet stuff is important. It's not anything about Taylor. It's just because what Taylor represents, it keeps people in that white male comfort. Mm-hmm. And we have a county that's going to be all women running pretty much. And we, and if you look at Elisa Simmons and Nydia and Tiffany Burks, and then if you look at Gina Hinojosa and a Jasmine Crockett, like if that is the slate, we have to be prepared to go as hard as we went for Taylor Remet, rather than saying, oh, like here's how we just, we ruined it,
or just thinking that they can't win. Yeah. Because then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. And start pouting.
It's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to point out things that could have been done differently. It's not let's throw up our hands and not continue to fight on the side that we need to be all aligned on.
It's just let's keep doing better.
Yep, exactly.
All right. So I know we had a lot of excitement this weekend with Taylor Remet. But because we were off last week, there is some news that we need to address where it was actually a pretty hard week. And I think, another positive about the Taylor Remet stuff is like, man, everyone needed a win. Mm-hmm. Everyone needed some hope.
Yeah.
And I think, just seeing how excited people were this weekend is awesome. But last weekend was pretty dark. I mean, for me personally, it was some of the darkest spaces I feel like I felt. I mean, you had what's going on in Minneapolis, where you saw what happened with two American citizens who were standing up for their neighbors. But we also had the incident right here in Tarrant County. And that is Wael Tarabishi, who we've been talking about, passed away over the weekend. Not this weekend, but the last weekend. And they had his service this Thursday. And really what we need to talk about, and one of my other disfortunes is I.C.E. killed a Tarrant County resident because they took Wael Tarabishi's main caregiver, his father, Maher Tarabishi, from the family. Wael Tarabishi has a intense disease called Pompe disease that makes it hard for him to eat, drink, talk, do anything without a high need caregiver and a lot of machines and support. And for nearly 90 days, he didn't have that caregiver who didn't just become his caregiver, it was his best friend. His dad committed his life, slept next to his son who made it in his 30s. And because ICE took the father, Wael Tarabishi passed away. And I have a lot to say here, but I want to give you all space to chime in. But to me, this is an example of why also talking about Taylor Remet is important, because when two white people passed away in Minnesota, there was a billboard for Renee Good in Tarrant County.
I didn't know that. Where was it?
Yeah, Indivisible put up a billboard.
Oh, I see.
But it's seeing how hard we go when it's someone we can relate to as a white person, but how much lack of support we got for the Tarabishi family. I personally, I know we do wins and losses. This is a big loss, not just for the system of our country. When you say our system works,
for everybody.
Yep. How can you say that? It's a loss to our politicians. I mean, Jasmine Crockett did say something, but it was late in the game. Where was our politicians at? All of our politicians could have done more. I think us as a community all could have done more. I mean, the fact that we had no infrastructure to support the family, mutual aid, where was the money? Where was the support?
Yeah, relying on GoFundMes and sending those out and trying to encourage people to support. And so many people have to resort to that people are reluctant and don't pitch in when it's needed and necessary.
Yeah.
And these are people that came and met with us on the podcast, this family, told their story here, joined us at the gather and shared their story. We know multiple people that were putting in tons of effort to support this family. But that's where we end up falling when we don't have systems in place that support, and we actually have systems in place that do harm.
Yeah. You know, why I was a little reserved about celebrating Taylor, or like, you know, I mean, it was awesome. People were asking me, what do you think about Taylor? You're going to the watch party. And to me, no, I have to go show up for the Tarabishi family. You know, I got to go show up for the most marginalized, you know, and I think those are just the things we got to be cognizant of. It's not that I think anybody we didn't do enough on purpose. It is just, Tarrant County doesn't, because we haven't fully seen our power and have enough imagination on what kind of people we can be and what kind of community we can create. I think we all felt hopeless and not able, didn't know what to do. And let's be clear, I also think this is a failure on us as community organizers. I think there's way too much not collaboration and too much infighting that's, you know, with a family where time was not on their side. All this infighting could have been, you know, needs to be behind us as we think about organizing for people in need. Regardless of what you think of each other's political ideology and do we show up enough, like these kind of moments take all of us. And if we would have had more of a connection among all the organizers, maybe there could have been something more done. But I think there was, you know, too much infighting that I wish wasn't happening around this as well.
I just wanted to add that sometimes it's easy for people to think of state-sanctioned violence as just a gun in someone's face. And I think what happened to Wael is absolutely like, it's a slow murder. It is state-sanctioned violence. Wael was an American citizen. His father was here legally. There's no justification for why ICE took him. But the fact that they took Wael's caregiver, who's still being held captive, held prisoner,
not let out to attend his son's funeral.
Exactly. Like
crazy.
Diabolical. Like, he still needs our help, and we should all be outraged by what happened to Wael, and we should be outraged for Maher and make sure that he gets home to his family. I do also know that the people who've been helping this family, they're still trying to find someone to foster Maher's parrot. So yeah, I'm trying to make sure no more lives are lost while we fight to get Maher back.
Oh yeah, and man, I was really in a dark place after this because it was like also we were in the freeze and then it was also the normalcy of the stock show. Yeah. And watching all of our politicians dressed up and cosplaying as cowboys, taking photos and smiling. And like, you know about this. Like, you know this is a thing right now. And yeah, I'm very disappointed. And those same politicians who were out cosplaying as cowboys, taking smiles and pictures, were also the same people who were able to show up to a Taylor Remet celebration. And I think where I push is because, is it more important for us to show up at Nickel City to celebrate Taylor Remet, or is it more important for us to be out in the streets right now for Wael Tarabishi? And the fact that we have no capacity or infrastructure for the latter is the biggest gap in any change we will make in Tarrant County.
And I think often the reason for not showing up at those things is pointing and saying that those are decisions that are being made at another level, but that's absolutely not even true because local politicians make decisions about how they cooperate or don't cooperate, how they sign contracts in order to have training, and how they partake in the issues that those federal organizations are doing. So it's just an excuse to say that they can't make that decision.
And it was at the same time the damn 10 Commandments get put downtown Fort Worth. You know, thou shalt not kill, right? What happened to pro-life? What happened to, this is an American citizen, even though none of that shit should matter, but the way our own elected officials like Commissioner Krause wants to chime in about the Second Amendment and did Pretty have his right to the gun. Like, we're more about fighting that America propaganda about the Second Amendment when you have an American citizen in your own county whose life is on the line and you have nothing to say because it doesn't allow you to pander to your base. So there's just so much shame into this. I mean, there should be a lot of shame, and a lot of us is like, you know, like I know a lot of times people get worked up, like EJ, you're never celebrating, you know, you don't bring a lot of joy. And I'm like, well, because like being black and brown, like, or marginalized, like, you know, handicap, you know, whatever, like there's people who are dealing with this on a regular basis. Like Wael Tarabishi isn't just one. This is how most people die from ICE that, you know, get an experience. It's through the inches within the system. So it's just, I mean, but how do you change that? How do you change that when you have, you know, Democrats saying, you know, don't abolish ICE, or, hey, you know, somehow voting for funding for more ICE. Like, right. It's like people get caught in the inches. And, you know, again, that's why the accountability to the Remet campaign is like, great, we won, but all that narrative around inches and meeting in the middle, like that's how we have a system that we have today that harms and kills black and brown people.
So our final story, short story number 3, is related to the bond election, which is coming up. And there's been a lot of discussion about that, and it's kind of hard to switch gears from what we've just been talking about and how heavy that was and how devastating that news was to this. But it does bring some element of things that we can do and things that we do have some input and control over to try to make better going forward. Yeah. So the Fort Worth City Council plans to devote $5 million more to affordable housing after feedback from residents and council members, which I think that we can take some credit for, because people that we've been aligned with and recommending and educating showed up at all these public meetings to say that it was dismal and ineffective to just have $5 million in the bond. And so now we have 10, which is still a whole lot less than we need.
It's still abysmal.
Yeah,
still very
compared
abysmal.
to other big cities.
Yeah, the city's own plan says we need $100 million in 5 years, and that plan was adopted in 2023. So we only have 2 more years to get there, or not even. I mean, we're past it. We're past it.
Yeah.
And we didn't get close. So I'm happy to celebrate that we are funding it at a higher level. I think they had a robust conversation about that at the work session, and everyone has the opportunity. And I encourage everyone to show up on February 10th when they are going to officially vote on what is in the bond and the language that's in that bond. And then I also recommend that you show up and talk to the people that you know to vote in support of that bond proposal, because the city will tell you all day long that they can't tell you how to vote. They can only tell you to vote. And I guess according to the rules, that is true. But without this funding, they're not going to be able to do these things that we would like them to do. So I can tell you, not as a sitting council member or someone from the city, that you should support this bond going forward.
Yeah. And one of the wins, it sounds like, from that work session was that they've opened it up to more than just single family housing. Because that's what pissed me off when they first pitched $5 million for single family housing. That's
I think
best
that was
25
all
houses.
Acquiescing to people who are NIMBYs and are upset about multifamily in their neighborhoods and worried about, you know, density and all the things that people get all worked up about. I think the city was just trying to navigate something that they thought would get a lot of pushback. But what got a lot of pushback was the limited number of single family homes that would actually be able to be created with that small amount of money. I mean, $5 million is a lot of money. I'm not saying it's not, but
when it comes to addressing a huge citywide problem like affordable housing, that's pennies. That's nothing.
Yeah. So I think the changes that were made to it makes it much more flexible. It allows the money to be put into collaborations with other funding sources. And I think the overall outcome will be more affordable housing in a variety of types, and especially in that missing middle type, which is allowing more houses to be built in the urban core of the city where people have closer access to walkability to the services and things that they need. So I think that it was definitely a move in the right direction.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like they tried to also take down art on you guys.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Ann was texting me
I was
as
checking
this was
your blood
happening.
pressure, making sure you were good, you know.
I think both of us described ourselves as watching this meeting and yelling at the screen that we were watching it on.
Absolutely. The thing that pissed me off the most was that it appears that my city council member, Macy Hill, was the one who put this up for discussion about cutting all of public art funding down to 1%, or just eliminating it entirely and having it voted as a separate thing. So for those that don't know, the way that public art is funded is 2% of every bond thing goes towards public art, and then for transportation and public works, that is 1%. It used to be 2% across the board. Technically, for open space, 0% goes towards public art because that money is just on preserving land. So that's how it works. And yeah, they were talking about cutting it entirely and what that would look like. And they said that it would save a total of $29 million. And when they were like, I was so glad that the second this was brought up, Jeanette Martinez, Deborah Peoples, and Mia Hall immediately came to the defense, pointing out art is essential throughout our entire city, but also $29 million, that's like a couple of sidewalks. Like transportation costs so much.
Yeah, because that's where they were planning to move it
and this
to.
is an $800+ million bond.
They were planning to take it from the arts and put it towards transportation, and not public transportation. Let's be clear.
Just
roads and
maybe
walkability.
Sidewalks.
They were talking about sidewalks.
Yeah.
And that is something that definitely needs funding.
Yes.
But there are other areas where we could move money from that have a ton more money than the arts does.
Yep.
So it seemed like a really petty thing to be
Absolutely.
even discussing taking money from the arts. And they did bring up some valid concerns about how the placement of public art has been dictated by the location of roads when those projects are in combination with each other. And those are things that definitely could be talked about and improved. Nobody is arguing about that.
Yes, and that's why I was really yelling at my TV, is because that is not a problem of Fort Worth Public Art. That is a state law that ties their hands on how that money can be used. And like, I agree with the criticisms. I would much rather have us spend that money in places that make more sense. I would rather more flexibility in what kind of art projects that can go towards. And also, that would open up the possibility to hire more local artists to make public art. But the way the state law is written, everyone's hands are tied.
Well, and some of the comments that were being made it sound like there hasn't been any effort to have local artists, which is not true. They have definitely done capacity building with local artists.
Yes.
The question about whether the artwork has to last a certain amount of time in order to be a capital project art piece, they have done things where local artists who don't have the kind of practice to make that kind of art have collaborated with fabricators who can make their art long lasting. And so those things have been addressed by public art. So I just felt, I was worried that it was turning into a complete bashing session of the public art program and making it be stood up as something that we should not be doing in the future. Fort Worth funds their public art in a different way than many other cities do by doing it the way that they do it. And it has been successful. We have an incredible public art program.
Nationally recognized.
And we definitely need to figure out ways to fix anything that people have found problems with, but not get rid of it altogether. And have it, the idea of putting it up as its own separate item in the bond, I think it was nonsense. And I was glad to see several people step up and say, we're not going to have this conversation right now tied to trying to figure out the timeline for this bond. It
It's
doesn't
way too late.
preclude us from improving things in the future and making sure that going forward we do a better job.
Yeah.
And shout out, you said, you guys said, Jeanette Martinez, and, people stepped up, but let's be clear, y'all saw what happened to Taylor Remet. So let's start taking the table. We need more. We need more Boulder.
Yes.
That's good to see it happening. But, art is a part of the fabric of a city. Some of my favorite cities to go to. Look at Atlanta, look at Seattle, look at Miami, all this vibrancy that you see flowing through when you're there. And the only people who don't want art is authoritarians. So we also know what that embodies and why they're afraid of us to actually hit our creative consciousness and start questioning the powers and systems around us. And so, art and the bond, guys, I was thinking about it. It's like the whole tax rate conversation needs to become more normalized, and we need to quit being afraid of this, property tax, they're going to raise it or whatever, people.
If they're going to things that make the city better, that's a good thing.
Yeah, like $200, let's say it was a flat $200 for every Fort Worthian had it pay $200 more in taxes. Talking $200 million.
Over a year, you're talking
about.
over
a year. Less than $20 a month.
Yeah.
That's and you get $200 million right there. Like, they're now we can afford the housing, and you could add transit. Look at that.
I know, all the things.
So it's just like we got to somehow take that from them, because I think the last time we raised the tax rate was in the 90s.
It's been a long time. We've been lowering it since before I was in office. So we have a whole variety of wins to talk about this week. And we will start off with the Trimble Tech and Poly and Young Women's Leadership Academy, and I think some other schools too.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the main ones I saw. Yeah.
Did a walkout in an anti-ICE protest. And it was interesting because I had been following some social media from San Antonio where there was a very concerted collaborative effort with some leadership in San Antonio schools where they were listing off the schools that were participating and encouraging other people to participate. And I did not see one thing about Fort Worth or Tarrant County doing this. And so when it came up and people started sharing that these kids were actually doing this, I was super happy and excited. But I don't know why San Antonio's stuff was showing up in my algorithm.
They're blue, you know. They actually operate as
go.
blue. Fort Worth continues to not operate in our boldness, you know.
But they got all these kids to do this without, well, I mean, not that my algorithm shows everything, but maybe they were organizing in a different kind of way.
They did on Texas Wesleyan. I know Community Frontline had a good post that got some good traction.
I'm just talking about ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
So that how did kids know that this was going to be happening?
Yeah.
Because the San Antonio feed that I was following was basically encouraging people to participate, identifying
we're under that
schools.
state control now. That state control life, you know, kind of hard to fight ICE.
But all three of these schools are Fort Worth ISD.
I know this is why it's a win. Is that even though we have Governor Abbott trying to be our superintendent, we have some resistance.
Yeah, these
go.
kids are
And
doing
the
the
young
right thing.
people have always led the resistance. So young people keep showing us what to do.
There you go.
Proud of these kids.
Very much so. And then Fort Worth's own Opal Lee is now a Barbie. I'm not sure I ever had Barbies when I was growing up, but somebody else I saw said, I don't think I've ever bought a Barbie, but I'll be buying this Barbie. But I went
Sold
and looked
out.
and they're sold out.
I was wanting to get one for my kid. No, it was sold out but within a day, it seems like.
Well, and it seems like, I don't know what's happening with the Juneteenth Museum, but maybe this is what will get to happen there. You know, a Barbie of
buy it at the gift shop.
Yeah, we just buy
have
them.
them available
Yeah,
there.
that'd be fire. A Juneteenth Museum collaboration, and you can buy the Barbie there.
There you go.
That'd be a great marketing right there.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully some of the money from Mattel goes to Juneteenth Museum. Maybe that was part of the deal.
That would have been epic.
But it's great to see that happening. We're very excited for Opal.
One fun win is that Tarrant County College is offering their first ever bachelor's degree next fall. I went to TCC. I tried to get all my basics out of the way there, and it's like, I liked it there. I wish I could have done this, get a bachelor's degree there. So I'm excited for all the people who get to benefit from that.
That's a very good resource to have. I think the people who get almost an associate's degree while they're still in high school because they do that collaborative thing between TCC and Fort Worth ISD is a good thing too. So we're going to get people graduating from college in 2 years.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the People's Commissioners Court and how they kind of stood that up in order to give people an outlet to go talk about the issues happening at the county after the county cut back their meetings to once a month and are so dictatorial about how you can speak and what you can speak and can't speak on. And recently they got acknowledgement with several articles, KERA, I believe, talking about what's going on at Commissioners Court. So they're calling for policies to prevent ICE agents from accessing Fort Worth ISD campuses. And I think that's what kind of got the attention of KERA. And so they're getting some acknowledgement for that effort that they've been ongoing with.
And we have a ton of transit wins. I was trying to make this a short story, but there's important issues that we need to discuss. So we're going to rapid fire these real quick. First off, we saw an article from KERA about transit-oriented development. It's called One Solution for North Texas Traffic Jams, Building Near Public Transit. It blew my mind seeing a actually useful article informing people on a very important issue that isn't timely, but is something we all need to be more aware of. So that to me was a win. But also, TEXRail in December saw record ridership, so that's great. I mean, and because
25% jump.
Exactly. And a lot of that is because of Grapevine built transit-oriented development, and they've been playing hard into that. And so you saw a lot of people taking the train out to the Christmas capital of Texas.
So Trinity Metro also, as a transit agency, passed a resolution highlighting their partnership with DART and the importance of that in the face of all that DART has got going on over there on the other side of the Metroplex.
Mm-hmm.
They also have a bus extension to the Fort Worth Cultural District starting on February 1st.
Today.
And Trinity Metro or Trinity Railway Express has changed their fare rate to be in line with the region. So I think this is all positive in the face of a lot of the negativity that we've been seeing with cities contemplating pulling out of collaborations with DART. And I think also that Trinity Metro was named the Transit Agency of the Year and will be acknowledged at the annual conference of all the transit agencies in the whole entire state of Texas in April.
Yeah, so that was announced at the recent Transit Mixer that Community Design Fort Worth hosts. And they also had a very fun announcement that the award for Friend of Public Transit of the Year goes to... and Zeta.
I was so incredibly shocked, and so many people knew about this that nobody let it slip.
I didn't know about it.
I was completely.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't tell me because I'm horrible at keeping secrets.
My husband knew before I knew, and he didn't tell me.
Straight lace.
So I was very surprised, but I am honored. So it's very, very great.
Yeah. So we have Fort Worth has the best transit agency and the best transit advocate right here in Fort Worth, and this is a moment that we are having is that Fort Worth is finally starting to make momentum towards the direction that we need.
It's a team, man.
Transit.
That team is looking scary.
Yep. It's good.
That team is looking good.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just me and the advocacy friend of transit side of things. I literally uplift and share other people's content who are also huge advocates of transit in Tarrant County. So I appreciate all of them as well.
All right, so we're starting with a loss, and actually this story, we're going to have this individual on the pod, but a defense attorney says lawyers' removal from juvenile board was deeply troubling. This is a Star Telegram article by Kamal Morgan.
Yeah, so we've talked about how Tarrant County sends more juveniles to prison than anywhere else. And so there's this juvenile board that oversees how that works, and part of it is they have a list of lawyers the public defenders that can represent these kids. And one of the lawyers that's been a part of that since its very inception in the early 2000s, he is now running against Andy Kim, who is the judge who is responsible for sending so many juveniles to prison. Mm-hmm. And in a recent meeting, just out of the blue, they removed that lawyer from the list of lawyers that can represent these juveniles. And it's so clearly a retaliatory attack for running for office against Judge Alex Kim. And this is pathetic behavior. It seems, kind of what we've come to expect from Tim O'Hare and his cronies. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to having this lawyer on the podcast and learning more about, from his inside perspective, like what is going on with juvenile court? Why is it so bad?
Yeah.
Well, and the fact that we have Republican, Democrat in our judge races seems ridiculous.
Idiotic, yeah.
And it's led to there just being almost, I think, all Republican judges and no Democrats willing to challenge because they are lawyers in the community having to make a living and practice here in Tarrant County. And they have to go appear before the judges that they would be challenging. And so that seems like ripe for retaliation. And clearly here is where it has happened.
Yep. So this is a loss that it's even happening at all. But I think putting eyes on it, we can help stop this and fix the problem.
So a second loss was that a while back we mentioned, I believe we did mention it on the podcast, that the Islamic Games in Colleyville were canceled. And my understanding is that this is a competition that has happened multiple times in the past. And now Abbott is calling this group terroristic and is looking to further investigate this. But I think this is all feeding into the fear and the trying to scare people to vote a certain way by saying that there's some Islamification happening in Texas. And, back to the Tarabishi family not getting the support that they need, I think that feeds into that fear mongering that people do and try to make a scapegoat or an enemy of people who are just people living here in our community.
Final loss that we have here is the Fort Worth Port Union that was supported by 85% of the Fort Worth Report staff did not get recognized by the leaders and the entity that is the Fort Worth Report.
So that's Chris Cobbler and the board that represents Fort Worth Report.
Chose not to honor and recognize this, which, be clear, is a union because they have the votes, and it is a acting working union. They are just trying to make it as if they're not recognizing it, making them revote, wasting time on negotiation. And again, a great person to talk about this is Bradford William Davis, and he shared about his experience with me around having a union at his at the Business Insider and the Wire, I believe was his other one. And so this is we're at an interesting time with our publications. I mean, we had Bradford leave, and will get let go. I mean, we had Harrison Mantis on paternity leave.
He's got one more week of it.
I know.
So he'll be back
Hurry
soon.
up, child. I mean, leaving these old 70-year-old opinion article people by themselves, they losing their minds. All right. Like, and I mean, I don't know how much longer I could have a subscription to Star Telegram. Like, I'm not even lying to y'all. And then the Fort Worth Report Union. I mean, again, if the journalists need to walk out, and we have these two institutions that are just tied to keeping up the Fort Worth way, we got to figure out how do we actually get news and sources. And thank God we get to do this podcast together and try to find some of it. And some of us are experienced and have some knowledge in different crannies of the city. But we need real journalists who actually does this for real.
Yeah, and we need to make it sustainable for them to keep doing it. Because Fort Worth Report, like, the journalists have been doing great work. And I'm tired of us keep losing these great journalists because kind of it sounds like the workplace situation at Fort Worth Report and the sustainability of it. So.
And then you can email me at the 817podcast@gmail.com if you have any interest of the idea of building a community newspaper. Because really doing the math on it, $200,000 can get you 3 journalists. Like you could probably get 2 Bradfords and then like 1 young newbie. And I straight up believe those 3 people
can do a lot.
Will crush what we currently have today.
Yeah, steer a lot of the conversation.
And it would be people powered. It would keep leadership in check, do the hard work. I mean, $200,000 team. I mean, like that could be 200 people who got $1,000. I mean, that could be 2,000 people in a 2.2 million county with $100. This would be something that doesn't seem scary to do, but I would like some more buy-in to it if we can find how to do it. This may be the next step.
And even before that, leading into actions, what you can do is reach out to the Fort Worth Report and share with them your desire to support these journalists in their endeavor to unionize. Because if they hear from you, which Fort Worth Report is free and is funded by folks sending them money, and if you tie that support to them supporting their journalists having this union, then that will say something to them.
Yep. Yeah, I already did that. I sent an email to Chris Kalber saying, I'm looking forward to donating to Fort Worth Report again once you support the union.
Also, another quick action before we jump in is the donating to the Tarabishi family. The Tarabishi family needs more resources. The link will be in the bio. You can also find it in the Instagram. Go to their GoFundMe and help this family out the way we can. 817, let's do it. This is one of our own. Let's do what we can to activate and support this family in this horrific experience.
And speaking of supporting people to run for office, you have the opportunity starting February 2nd through March 2nd to encourage people to file to run for City Council District 10.
We need a TJ, a TRJ, a Taylor Remet Jr. Where you at? You saw what he did at SD9. Y'all can do it at 10. Let's make it happen.
Yep.
Let's make it happen. And again, every politician in Fort Worth, Tarrant County, if you believe you can beat them because you're bolder, bigger, and badder, get ready because this is the moment to get the whole table.
Yep. And I also want to point out that because this Fort Worth City Council District 10 is a special election, you're the only one on the ballot. And we saw how well that worked out for Taylor Remet, where it's like all of the funding and energy and resources are focused on one race. And so it's like if you're the only one running for city council at this time, so you're going to get a lot of support. So if you're interested, let us know. We want to support you if you're a progressive candidate.
Yeah, there might be, there might be some candidates who might need to consider this as their other path to getting successful.
And then, February 4th, we have the next 817 Gather at the Table. So our plan is each month we're going to do it in a different Fort Worth City Council district. So this is District 2, which means we're going to be in Northside, which means we're going to be having some good Mexican food.
Yeah. I'm gonna be howling. Hopefully Carlos can hear me because I'm just before he can know we're coming.
We already mentioned the bond public meeting that will happen on February 10th. So if you'd like to show up and support the bond, having the affordable housing component to it, that's the place to show up and do it.
If you have any kind of opinions about the bond, show up to public comments.
Yeah, because now you can do that every week.
Yeah, public comment at every meeting.
I've been itching to get back. Let's, public comment, February 10th. Who knows what I'll talk about, but we need people to talk about things and show them we are here and that Taylor Remet is the beginning of a wave.
Mm-hmm.
And so just so people are not confused, we have yet another opportunity to vote because we're coming up on the primaries in February. Early voting starts for the March primaries, which are for the November elections. So
the way you said that is so confusing. But yes, yeah.
It's the truth.
It is. I mean, there's so many elections this year, and it's going to be wild. But yes.
And at the top of that ticket, of course, is Jasmine and James Talarico. Jasmine Crockett and James Talarico. You have Commissioner Simmons, who needs votes because clearly Mark Vesey's name is still on there, and he hasn't truly said he's endorsing Commissioner Simmons publicly. And so don't be stealth running. And then you have Precinct 2 is interesting because you have Jared Williams, Amanda Ardizola, Gabe Rivas, who we're going to have on the pod February 8th. So that's going to be interesting. We're trying to figure out who's the most progressive candidate.
There you go.
So we'll do that. And then, of course, in Precinct 4, we have Nydia Cardenas, who is running and has the odds and the chance and the values to beat Manny Ramirez. And so she just also got the Tarrant Young Democrats endorsement.
Yeah.
Working Families endorsement. Most individual contributions. Shoot, the movement might continue.
Yeah, if I were Manny, I'd be sweating right now looking at how blue SD9 has gotten because there's a lot of overlap with Tarrant County Precinct 4 and SD9.
100%. 100%.
And we mentioned this before, but February 20th, we're doing something crazy. We are doing a live recording of the 817 pod at the Tarrant County Democratic Party fundraiser.
Yes.
I still got to figure out the logistics of how we're doing that, but it will be fun.
Wesley's such a perfectionist. He wants it to be perfect.
And I will get 10 minutes to talk on stage, so who knows what I will say there, but I want it to be my most punchiest stuff. Like I might even have a James Talarico joke in there, but I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't know about that because it sounds like we might get Talarico on the pod during that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, they could be direct him then. But here's the thing is you can be in the room where it happens.
Mm-hmm.
In the room where it happens. You can be there. Like you just got to get a link, support the Tarrant Democrats and see, look at the success that we had. We had Taylor Remet packed in Nickel City. The team decided to make The Office a second place to watch, and it was bumping
Had
there.
multiple overflow parties.
Yeah, my clone was at the one at Tarrant Dem party. Ernie Moran, he was there.
You might got credit for being there.
Yeah, he texted me. He said someone came up to me. He's like, "Is that EJ?" And they were really disappointed when they found out it wasn't. But I said,
Ernie's cool too.
Yeah, exactly. Ernie's the GOAT. He's the one that taught me how to do all this.
I had a watch party in the comfort of my own home in my pajamas.
Yes. All right, beautiful people. So that wraps it up. Another great episode of the 817 podcast. Next week, like we said, it's going to be the Tarrant County Commissioner race, Precinct 2. We're going to interview Jared Williams, Amanda Ardizola, Gabe Rivas, and I think everyone is trying to figure out who's the most progressive candidate in that race. If you don't know, Tarrant Young Dems did not endorse a single candidate in that race. I think that's telling that it's interesting, it's competitive, and we want to see what it's about. So we get to do that right here on the 817 podcast next week.